And so it's almost for me to just force something useful out of this, a takeaway at least, because there is no takeaway. The takeaway is everybody's an ideologue and doesn't care or even give a what the other person has to say. And so here I am, forced to do it myself. I usually like these, but this one was just so terrible. And I think I had to turn it off after maybe 2 or 3 people because there is almost nothing of value gained from this. There genuinely isn't. And it only left me with the idea that partisanship in this manner is just flat out immoral. I can't see it any other way, right? And when I talk about partisanship here, I mean just the political idolatry that's going on. Just pedestaling, not even ideals, not even things of value, right? But allegiances, right? Frameworks, the bad, horrible nature of debates. And I think I can share the sentiment that conversation, deep conversation, even if they have a bit of infighting themselves, is so much better than what this garbage is becoming. Because when you engage in this format, you have to become someone who's immoral. You have to engage in immoral behavior in a sense. You have to become someone that is not pursuing something good. Not only for yourself, but in general, if anybody emulated you in this manner. Right? Right? If you behaved like this at work, engaging in this type of obstinate debate, if you engaged like this with your wife, would it not lead to divorce? With your kids, would they not resent you, hate you? You would not teach them anything. You would not guide them into anything. Some of the characteristics of the way that you have to behave is one-dimensional epistemologies, one-dimensional analysis. Everything that is fundamentally wrong about the way that modern higher values are supposed to be, the way that the modern liberal debate in the education system is supposed to make people, right? And something else, this is probably the biggest one that bugs me, is the fact that it requires completely, logically, rationally sound and consistent belief structures, right? And in other words, that basically means that people are unable to accept the paradoxical nature of reality, right? The American system is paradoxical in nature. The two-party system is a paradox. It is a dialectic of sorts, right? And the compromise of these two opposing forces on either side that can't agree. They seem to have almost nothing aligned. But they have to come together in order to make things work. Right? The whole system relies on it. The whole system is dependent on it. Right? Another way we could look at this is if autocratic structures and people who advocate for autocratic structures are viewed as immoral, then people who engage in this hyper-partisan kind of brain dead type of debate, there's not much between them, right? Because if these people were trying to engage in 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 a proper democratic, you know, good faith conversation, right? There wouldn't be so much infighting. There wouldn't be so much ideology leading people forward, right? Everybody here in this conversation is just it's their worst impulses, right? They've willingly submitted to something that maybe they don't even properly understand. And I mean, look, we can't be all perfect beings, but I mean, come on. You can't watch back on this and think you did a good job, right? Because I think almost everybody who speaks sacrifices everything near and dear to them. Not even for their own political ideologies, but for their own clout. And the only thing they have actually prepared is the ideology. So it just comes through again and again and again.
Well, how would you define wokeism? I guess we should start with that.
I think wokeism is a pejorative term that's used to describe left-wing cultural politics.
Right.
Pejorative? Woke? What woke?
Here in California.
Okay.
I would argue that I am about as far left as you can get as Democrats.
Okay.
And I'm critical of the Democratic Party because I actually don't think they're left enough.
I am more morally pure than everybody else.
Donald Trump ran on a platform of making the economy better. He appealed to people, the populace, of saying, listen, I understand the struggle. They pointed the finger at immigrants, at trans people, LGBTQ people, but then he made it worse.
Trump hates the gays.
Everything we talk about in my program, every piece of what you guys would probably consider to be like woke critical race theory has been so beneficial for me in my student teaching and connecting with our students.
This guy's a teacher. It's just CRT is good.
I spend a lot of my career debating Christian nationalists. And even the nicest Christian nationalists, they do want to take your rights. I spend a lot of time talking to these people, even the really nice ones. So,
Dave, you're gay. Why don't you agree with me? And there's just more of this in this video. You have the rational robots, like I mentioned, or the people who need logical consistency.
Last year under Trump's administration, the inflation 3.8% year over year since Trump got in office. We're seeing all of those economic indicators become worse off. Can you tell me anything that he's done to make it better off? You say it's broken for Democrats. It sounds like it's broken right now under Trump.
Have you looked at the stock market?
It's worse off in terms of the growth in 2025 as compared to 2024. If you look at Dow Jones and S&P 500.
They're both up quite a bit right now.
But lower rate,
and
lower
doing,
rate,
and
lower
doing
growth
quite
rate.
well. You know, things don't happen overnight. So Donald Trump, for example, things don't.
Right? Like, I mean, first off, this guy needs to read Jonathan Haidt. You don't convince people with facts.
That is fundamentally incongruous with reality because Donald Trump is not making America great. He's attacking the fundamental fabric that makes America America. For example, birthright citizenship. One of the things that distinguishes us from other countries in the Western world, in first world countries.
This guy should have just stuck with the facts.
Presidency, just getting control of the border, I would say would be good enough because you don't have a country if you don't know who is in it.
Okay, all three of your claims are wrong. Pick which one you want to be proved wrong on.
Let's do borders.
Perfect.
Okay.
Donald Trump is absolutely the worst president on the border. First,
I mean, I like this guy the most. He's straight to the point, but man, the hubris. And all of this doesn't stop there because you get the performative, the ridiculous, and just the straight up unempathetic.
I remember you
softening me up. Okay.
No, you brought
okay.
on like Stephen Molyneux, like the white nationalist, and I was like, this guy just loves ideas. He just loves all different.
Listen, Dave, I'm going to be honest. I'm a little tired, but I'm not the president, so I'm not going to fall asleep. Okay. Give me a second. Let me see that. So, I want to defend the Democratic Party because...
Did you think that was funny?
I thought it was absolutely hilarious. But let's slow down. First of all, I'm pretty sure you talked a lot of shit about Joe Biden, who's demented, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to defend the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Do you not think Joe Biden had cognitive problems?
I'm joking. I'm joking. Hold on. I'm joking. Okay.
Well, I would just like to get into the fact that I think it's actually conservatives and Republicans who don't live in reality because in reality, Trump is actually making it worse for people who claim they want affordability. Nothing in the big, beautiful bill actually helps poor Americans. It actually increased their taxes and gave tax breaks to corporations and the ultra wealthy. So if we want to talk about who's not living in reality, I think it's the people who are poor but support Trump because they think that he likes them.
And the thing is there's still crazier things here. Okay? You have an unapologetic communist who wants to decommodify labor.
Doing is opening up opportunities for people to reevaluate the way that they see politics, right? Progressives are arguing that more pocket power should be delivered to the average American. That is like one of the foundational tenets of progressivism.
Yeah. Can you say with that, what is more pocket power?
Okay, right. So this is the idea, right, that under our current system, we see that the majority of power, as well as just like monetary control, exists within people who own private property. And to essentially decrease that gap, progressives want to give more power to those who are in the workplace.
Do you not?
Just to give it to both sides here, Dave Rubin does not perform well at all in this. And frankly, if I was like a deep MAGA supporter, I would be ashamed that it was Dave Rubin who was sent on this to debate a bunch of lefties.
Let's talk about reality.
Okay.
Let's talk about three things that exist in reality: climate change, Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, and vaccines out of COVID are effective and safe. The right does not accept any of those things.
Yeah.
Does Donald Trump accept the 2020 election results? And do Republicans broadly accept the 2020 election results still to this day?
I think there's a lot of questions about the 2020 election.
Because at the end of the day, all you're doing is giving them the clicks, the attention, the ability to beat on somebody, which is what they want. And you can see it's just the clip farming starts where you have Sam Cedar, you have the guy who was there, Parker, honoring politics, this guy who did horrible, and it just keeps going on and on. Even Kyle Kalinske, right, jumping in on this, like his career ends in Dave Rubin. Oh my God. And the only thing that is accomplished by this is political awareness, basically advertising. No ideas discussed, no takeaways, no building of character, just pure, utter kind of slop. And so it's almost, for me to just force something useful out of this, a takeaway at least, because there is no takeaway. The takeaway is everybody's an ideologue and doesn't care or even give a shit what the other person has to say. And so here I am, forced to fucking do it myself. Right? The problem is that these types of people, this type of mindset is paradoxical itself. It is necessary for politics. It is necessary for pluralism, for democracy. You need the staffers, the advocates, the politicians, all these groups of people. Because on some level, right, what's happening in democracy is, instead of hoping that the heir is not some insane lunatic, we just kind of spread out all the power amongst all the lunatics, because only the lunatics are the ones who want to run for Democratic office. And it's insanely tough because we have to kind of accept on some level the immorality that people imbue into their souls and their spirits when they engage in this type of behavior. There's no way around it. It is the practical reality of the world. Something that these people wouldn't be able to accept because they fundamentally believe in their own goodness and the evil of the other side. Hence partisanship is immoral. And so what it boils down to, right, in simplest terms, is when you're selecting somebody, when you're pushing for somebody, it's just the best person for the job. The sad problem is that, not everybody actually cares about the job getting done. Some people only care about the politics of it. If you work in any type of job, there's the slacker and there's the guy who kind of just actually does work, the do-gooder, the actual productive person, the schmuck, the guy who has to actually finish the project. Nobody is actually bounded to care about anything, right? It's insofar as the terms of the agreement kind of require you to care. In 90% of cases, it's very little, because the only other incentive left is money. And so it's clear in the past that the way forward was sort of a reimagining of the political consensus, some moment period of violence, of mass suffering, of a demand for action, right? The rapid adoption of normies or the political moderates into the atmosphere to kind of overwhelmingly decide on a new social order. If you America, for example, this is why I love American history. America, for example, in the civil rights movement, it was the rapid adoption of moderates and even moderate conservatives into the civil rights movement. Because once you have enough, they just pass legislation. There is a new agreement and establishment on what the social order moving forward is. In World War II, you have complete and utter devastation with the Great Depression. And it was so terrible that it forced not only the US, but the entire world into some sort of conflict with itself. The Civil War, the entire South basically abandoned its option to rewrite the moral norms, to kind of placate and just say, honestly, if they compromised, slavery could have gone on another 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, what do you do at that point? If they didn't leave the Union and just accepted Lincoln. So that's sort of the historical precedence, but people are a little lazy. They have this refusal to engage with reality en masse. We're not inundated in our local spheres. We're inundated into these hyper selective algorithmic bubbles that connect you with people who you would never meet before. Right? And takes it to extreme infinite levels, because not only do you meet maybe one or two people that you might not met before, but you meet millions of people you might not have met before, at least interact with them in a political capacity. And so I think, especially with the rapid adoption of AI, the second option here is the kind of weird deployment of quote unquote non-bias AI solutions and structures to handle these minutias of the moment, right? We'll basically say, AI, make this algorithm not want us to kill each other. Normalize our feeds for us, or build two worlds for us where we don't have to kill each other, in a sense. Or we just, enough people become rapid adopters of just feeding the problem into an AI system or some sort of AI computer, and it answers it for us, and we accept it. We force everybody to accept it regardless of what it is. If AI comes back and tells us that anybody can be trans or non-binary or whatever, then we just accept it because we've all given and submitted to the AI decision. The next kind of two things are more out there, more exploratory for me, because I can see the autocratic type winning out in modern day democracy, and basically having a group of people be considered the select or the chosen, who are essentially bred for the purposes of leading the rest of society in forcibly making these decisions for us, where we give all these decisions and accept it, because there has to be some sort of reunifying consensus after. And I think the last thing is sort of the establishment of old traditional binding agents, especially religion, where we all organize into new religious congregations that feel unified through internet, where we basically, the landscape of the US becomes so ubiquitous that you can basically be wherever you want and have the same thing, right? The mass egalitizing of every single living, so there is no more like massiveness of New York in a sense. I mean, all of this is because these sort of futuristic ideas may seem weird, but the partisanship issue here is driving this. It's moving us further and further apart, and it has to kind of explode with something. It has to have some form of de-escalation. And the world we're in is vastly different from 80 years ago, from any kind of previous era of new consensus, right? It likely won't be now, but 10, 15 years after the end of the current struggle, there's going to be a new force driving whatever the new consensus is going to be. And this is what makes this type of behavior necessary, right? It may feel immoral, it may be horrible, it's almost disgusting in a sense to my sensibilities, but it is still fundamentally necessary because you don't push forward. If you don't have these types of people, then you just get crushed by those who do. But, maybe we could all just agree maybe they shouldn't be getting together in a room. We can save them for the political stages, and the actual discussion of ideas can happen elsewhere. I don't know, maybe this debate offended my sensibilities too much, but I think I learned a lot. I explored a lot in this one. Hopefully you guys too. Like, subscribe. See you in the next one.